Our school system is really quite good for most kids. It does a good job. The teachers are awesome. But it is a challenge day in and day out for children who struggle with reading, for example. We need to put new resources into our schools to hire the people who can work with students who have special requirements around reading, for example. Take children who have dyslexia. We don't have the resources in our school system to ensure that they can overcome that dyslexia and learn to read and write. I've met people whose parents were wealthy, took them out of the school system and put them in private school. And within 6 months, they started to feel quite good about themselves because they were getting the kind of help they needed to cope and accommodate the dyslexia that they have. And after a couple of years, felt very good about their writing and their reading capacity. And that does a huge job in terms of improving your self-worth and your prospects, of course, for work coming out of high school and moving on to post-secondary education if that's where you're going to go. I've met people who with dyslexia who, of course, came from families who didn't have those means and remained in the public system and were never able to overcome that problem. And that really says to me, we need to put new resources into our schools to help kids who need that help. It speaks to priorities. If our priorities are our children, and that's what we hear all the time, that needs to be reflected in how we spend our provincial budget. And that's not happening. We need to put more money into our schools to help overcome reading problems and other learning challenges that some students have. And that means specialists, that means new resource people. Let's get them in the schools to do that. And we need to ensure that in our schools as well, we catch the beginnings of mental health problems because often for many people it's during youth where they first emerge, so that we get early diagnosis and help right away. I know that there are classes where students have been asked how many people are concerned about a classmate who might be suffering from depression, and a majority of arms shoot up. Our kids shouldn't be falling through the cracks. We need to be providing the help in our schools right off the bat to ensure that the early signs of mental illness are caught, that we talk about it, that it's not stigmatized, and that treatment, if it's needed, is provided quickly and in a timely manner so that students are not left to suffer. If they had a physical health problem, they would get rapid attention and that problem would be resolved. But when it comes to mental health, that's not happening. And so we need a closer working relationship between our health and education systems. Break down those walls so that there's a seamless effort to essentially support our young people and our children in Fredericton and around the province. And that would make a huge difference. There's been some pilot projects in different corners of New Brunswick where this has been very effective by bringing nurse practitioners into the schools, by bringing mental health nurses into the schools, and what a difference that has made. So that should be universal across all our schools, and that reflects the kinds of priorities that the Green Party has, because we're really preoccupied by the future for our children and their children's children, for that matter. We're the party of the long term. We're not thinking in 4-year cycles, and that's what's critical if we're really going to address the major challenges that we're facing, things like mental health, things like literacy. We've got to think long term, and we've got to make those investments up front instead of what's happening now, where it's really quite appalling that the last couple of governments in many ways have left decisions to the accountants and to the bean counters. Important decisions that affect the education and the health of our children, and we've got to get away from that. We've got to pick clear priorities, set clear priorities for the long term, and stick to them. It's said that it takes a community to raise a child. Well, let's have our government priorities reflect that, rather than allow the decisions to be made by the number crunchers. Of course, we need to be responsible with the way money is being spent in this province, in our education system, and in our health system, but let's set clear priorities and invest the money where it needs to be spent to the greatest benefit of our children and our young people.